I felt empty, worthless. I looked at my history. My own parents didn't want anything to do with me. And the only person that looked at me like a son was my grandfather. He was gone. One of the questions that pop up a lot is, how did I figure all this stuff out? Where did ICT come from? What is the origin story? In the 90s, when I was younger and I first got into trading, it was a rushed effort because I wanted to become significant. My grandfather had passed away recently, and I was lost. Like, my father figure was gone. I watched this big, barrel-chested, strong Navy man be consumed by cancer, and I thought he could whip anything. And this invisible thing that I couldn't defeat, and he couldn't defeat, and the doctors couldn't defeat, ate him alive. And while he wasn't my father, to me he was. My wife left me real shortly after that, and I was pursuing computer science. I wanted to be a systems analyst. I hadn't really started any pursuit in trading. My uncle was constantly hammering on me, my Uncle Stan. From the age of 14 going on to 15, he was telling me all the time, richest people in the world trade futures and options, Michael. Get a good job and do that. And I can look back now and hear how God was placing that on me at a young age then. That was the seeds being laid. I wasn't ready for it. And when I went to work for a Jewish family out in Owings Mills, I was working for them as a vendor. I used to fill up soda machines and candy machines and service the coffee machines and cold food machines. I didn't make very much money doing it. I loved doing it, and it made me want to do that as a business. So I wanted to become an entrepreneur when I was a young man as a martial arts instructor. That's where I thought I was going to go. And then when I started lifting weights as a young teenager, I got as big as I could without steroids. And this before I started contemplating taking steroids, I wanted to join the WWF. I had a relationship start with my then first wife. And then once I got married, I just lost the pursuit of exercising and lifting weight and getting bigger. And it just became a pursuit of going to school. And I wanted to, be a systems analyst and do that. And in the process, I'm working as a vendor. So I had too many things going on, and I didn't give my first wife the attention that she needed. So I was always at school. I was always at work. And I was like a hospice nurse when I was home. So very little sleep. So when you want to ask me, how is it that I learned all this? How is it that I know these things? When I was a young man and I wanted to end myself, and I didn't have the courage to do it, I came home from work one evening, and one of the routes that I did, I was going across the Key Bridge, and Bill Burr is a comedian. He makes a skit about intrusive thoughts, and while sometimes it is funny, admittedly, it's really not appropriate to laugh at stuff like that, because I've had instances where I literally felt like I wanted to drive off that Key Bridge. And one day I made every intention of doing it. I had lost money. I had lost my wife. I lost my grandfather. I felt lost, and I hated doing what I was doing. I was making less than $250 a week bring home, but I was spending 6 days a week doing it, working on a Saturday, servicing one convalescent home down on Fayette Street in downtown Baltimore. But Monday through Friday, 13 and a half hours. Would you do that? No, most people wouldn't. But I was initially thinking, if I can learn everything about this business, make money, I'll buy my own machines, my own vending machines, and I'll know everything about this business that I'm looking at it as I'm paying tuition. Just like, I guess it would be considered like a intern, where you're not really getting paid, you're just there to get the experience, which is very expensive, by the way. But I felt defeated. I felt like I was at my wit's end. And I had lots of books. I had lots of things in my head, but I couldn't make that stuff in retail stuff work. It just, every time I got into a trade, either I would be scared because I lost money before, I lost an account, or I would be immediately stopped out. And it was very, very discouraging. And while I didn't have a gun, I probably would have hurt myself if I had one then. I felt like I was being invited many times driving over that Key Bridge. Like I just want to whip the wheel over there and just go off the edge of it. Well, the day I was in the stop right before going across the Key Bridge, and I would go to Telco, which was a stop that didn't make a whole lot of money, but I hated going to it. I figured, well, once I service that one, I'll be going over the Key Bridge, and then I'm going to do it today. I'll probably pass out on my way down. I probably won't feel anything, but nobody's going to miss me. And that's the depth of where I was. Nobody could have reached me. There was no cell phone, no text message that encouraged me not to do it. And I didn't tell anybody I was going to do it. Because listen, folks, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. People that talk about doing it, they just want someone to say, I love you, don't do that. They don't want to really hurt themselves. But that day I did. I felt empty, worthless. I looked at my history. My own parents didn't want anything to do with me. And the only person that looked at me like a son was my grandfather. He was gone. I had no direction in life. And yes, I believed in God, but that wasn't enough at the time. And I needed to feel some kind of purpose, some reason to be here, because there was no reason for me to want to be here. Something said, go home and don't think about it. Drove home, numb, no radio. Didn't lift weights that day. Went in, got a shower, didn't eat. And I sat in there and I stared at my computer. I sat there, looked at all the books I bought, and remembered all the hopes I had and waiting for them to arrive. And all the trips that I drove out to Columbia, Maryland, to the Traders Library, which was I'm not even sure if it's even a place anymore. Some of you act like that I had no adversities, like it was just too easy for me. It was unfair. Everything worked out for me. You have no idea the darkest corners of where I was, where I came from. I didn't have the courage to do what I said I was going to do when I got on that bridge. But something inspired me to go home and stop thinking about that. And when I got home that evening, I pulled out the price charts, which was a weekly service that was I pulled out the charts, I was looking at them, and it just looked like Greek to me. Like I was disconnecting. Like I wasn't interested in it anymore. For the first time, I looked at these things and said, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I can't see what it is that I'm supposed to see. And I just basically at my wit's end, I said, God, I never really invited you into this. But I feel broken. I feel like I have no worth. And I don't want to be here. I was never more interested in anything else in my life prior to that day than I was in the markets. And in that day, I was ready to disconnect everything. And I just laid it on the line. I said, I know you exist. I know you've been with me, and I know I'm here because of you. But why? Like, what do I have to show for it? Like, I work so hard at this and I can't get it to work. So I said, I'm going to ask you something. And you know my heart right now, and I mean it. If you open my eyes and my understanding, I swear I'll spend the rest of my life helping other people do it. I closed the charts and I laid there. I cried until I went to sleep. It wasn't until that weekend I grabbed the charts again. I started looking through them. I was just literally looking at them, having no understanding of what it was I was going to look for. Nothing. And I thought about what I had asked. And I hear, look. I'm looking around the room. Now I'm crazy. Because now I'm imagining things because that's what I want it to happen. I'm looking at the market, looking at the chart. I don't know what I'm looking at. Like, why would it go up from there? Mind you, I'm only looking at longs. I was afraid of going short. I didn't understand selling something I don't have. And I would look at these rallies and these points of inception where the market starts to go up, and it was like, it's like reading a foreign language you've never learned before. It's like, what am I looking at? Like, what do I know by looking at that? Look at that. My attention would go to somewhere else on the chart. And I already know that some of you are thinking, this isn't happening. I don't care. I'm not monetizing this. I'm not preaching to you. But some of you want to know. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm undeserving. I think the only reason why he let me see these things is because I asked that I would be gifted that way I could service. I serve with this information. Because to be honest with you, listen, prior to that day, if it would have been given to me, I would have selfishly kept it. You never would have learned any of this. And I would be an egotistical maniac, living a life that would just be about me.